Hello, U.S. history students. Today we are going to be taking a quick dive through the early 21st century. We're going to be looking at some of the trends with a special emphasis on the scientific and technological changes, as well as the role of women. So the first trend that we want to talk about is medical care. In 1952, Dr. Jonas Salk developed the polio vaccine, and he actually never patented the vaccine so that it could be freely used. He also, in the 60s, cancer screenings began to become more widely used. And they were primarily used for women's cancer detection for cervical and breast cancers. Women's equality will grow through the late 20th century. More occupations are opening up to women, and this is going to be changing their role and also introducing new challenges as well. So an increasingly larger percentage of America's labor force are women, and women are beginning to take non-traditional jobs in the late 20th century. And what I mean by non-traditional jobs is things that were not typically seen as women's roles, like teaching and nursing. Those had been kind of entrenched women's jobs. But by the late 20th century, you're going to see more women in business. You're going to see more women in science fields. Things that had typically been reserved for men will begin to open up for women. The courts will play a significant role in providing these opportunities, but there remains in this country a need for affordable daycare. And a lot of times that is what holds women back from being able to go to work. Sometimes it's just more expensive for women to go to work than it is for them to stay home, especially if they have a lot of young children. And during the pandemic, during the COVID pandemic, it took a greater hit on women. Many women lost jobs or steady salaries because they had to prioritize childcare during that time frame. Another issue is equitable pay. Statistically speaking, women are not paid the same as men, and there is the perception out there of a glass ceiling that women's career advancement is not equal to men. Now, sometimes that may be by choice. Women may prioritize different things. Sometimes that may be due to barriers that they are facing in the workplace. The next trend of the late 20th century and early 21st century is space exploration. We talked about previously how the space race began in the 1950s, and it was largely a rivalry between the US and Russia, and space is still largely dominated by the US, Russia, and now China as well. In 1981, we launched the Space Shuttle Columbia, manned with 2 people. It orbited the Earth 37 times in 54 hours. And you can see that right here outside of DC in the Air and Space Museum in Dulles, Virginia. The Mars rover, first was the Mars Pathfinder in 1997. This was sent to Mars, and you can see a picture of it down there at the bottom. Its sole purpose is to gather data about Mars. Space exploration continues with 2 spacecraft launched in 1977, the Voyager 1 and 2, and they are pictured there on the right. They are still in space gathering data, and they will be in space until 2025. So they have about a year left until they're going to run out of power. Sally Ride became the first woman in space in 1983. The Hubble Space Telescope was launched in 1990. It's considered the telescope of the universe, and that is still in use. Astronauts occasionally put more data or put more up-to-date technology on it. Another major trend that has affected us all is the advent of personal computers. Now, of course, computers were not at first designed for home use. They were used largely in universities and then office buildings, and they took up the size of probably your living room. But they became smaller, and they began to be mass produced in the late 1970s. The first were Commodore and Apple. And by the 90s, the internet became more available. And this helped people communicate worldwide via email and then chat. And you see on the right there, AOL Instant Messenger was one of the first chat apps. And this was one that I used widely in high school in college to chat with my friends before we had other things like texting and, all the other apps you have today for that, WhatsApp and Snapchat and all that. So why is it important that we understand the changes of technology? Over the past 3 decades, we have gained much better access to communication and information. This has radically changed the world. It has brought us together in a sense. It has also divided us because while we are able to exchange information, while culture is able to spread more easily from country to country, it is, of course, also a forum for debate and disagreement, and occasionally, and more often than desirable, misinformation as well. And one of the ongoing issues with the internet and communication technology is basically just ensuring equitable access between both urban and rural areas. Many times rural areas are the last to come online and the first to kind of go offline if something goes wrong, the first to struggle to get back online. As a result, more Americans overall, though, have access to global information and viewpoints. So we are getting a lot more information coming at us on a daily basis, and it can be overwhelming. And it does affect people's mental health, people's levels of anxiety. And so sometimes it is important that you just shut all of that off and live your life and go outside. Technology from computers, satellites, and the internet has led to cell phones and then smartphones. The major distinction, of course, being that smartphones have the internet on your device. Social media, which you are probably all very familiar with. Hacking is an increasing threat, not only a threat against individuals, citizens, but also a threat against governments. And it is a significant national security concern for our government and for others to ensure that our sensitive material is not hacked. Personal identity theft. This is why it is important to not give out your email or your personal information except on very trusted websites, and to take a lot of precautions with the dissemination of your personal information, because personal identity theft is real. It happens. It's becoming more and more common. Online coursework, of course, has taken off in the 21st century. Even in the past 10 years, more opportunities have become available. K-12 itself has expanded drastically, exponentially in the past decade, but since COVID as well. Telecommunication has become more popular, and since COVID, more and more people are working from home. More businesses are offering flexible options where you can work from home some days a week, and businesses have adapted to a telecommuting environment, and many office spaces have actually closed down since COVID because businesses have found that that's a way that they can save money as if people are working from home. GPS is a major part of our daily life. I personally don't know how I survived without it, but that makes it a lot easier for us to navigate the world. It can also tell you when you're traveling, where to get a pizza closest to where you are. And it definitely provides a lot of advantages. Of course, I think not many of us are very good at reading maps anymore because the GPS just tells us where to go. But that is also a major change that has taken place in this early 21st century. So thank you for listening today. Hopefully you were able to get those notes filled in, and we will talk later about William J. Clinton and NAFTA.